Okay, for this part, we're going to, we're going to create this part in this video, but two of the things that we're going to want to look at, okay, got it. Hi, in this video, we'll be making this part, and in addition to just making the part, we want to also talk about getting the orientation of the part correctly and also locating the part at a specified origin. The second thing that we'll have to do is this feature will require a reference geometry, in this case a reference plane. So what we're going to do is locate the origin here, and also if we want to put our part into an isometric view, we'd like it to look like this. So this plane here is the right plane. We're sketching on the top plane, and this is going to be the front plane. So the orientation of this part is going to be along this line. So let's go ahead, select the top plane, and we will create a sketch. And the orientation of the part is going to be sort of in an up and down fashion. So let me go over and turn off the visibility of the planes. And I'm going to start with by making a vertical center line that has an infinite length. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to utilize the center point straight slot tool, one of them here, and one above it over just somewhere vertically above it. I can then utilize the option, if I hold down my control key, is that I can make the two slots equal to each other, and this is going to simplify our process. Now we want this blue dot is going to be where my origin is, so all I need to do is take this line, hold down my control key, and make it coincident with the origin. So now let's put in some of our dimensions. From here to here is going to be a distance of 3.5. From this line itself, which defines the distance between the two holes, is 2.5. And the radius is given as a radius of 0.5. So I'll make that 0.5, and that should lock down all of my parts of my two slots. Now we'll just use the center point rectangle tool, just selecting anywhere here and making sure I get coincident with one of the lines, and then all I need to do is drag my corner down so that I'm coincident with the other slot. The width of this will also, the width of the slot will be the same as the radius of this curved piece. So it has a radius of 0.75, so the width will be 1.5. So I'll go ahead and go from here to here and make my distance. I was close, but not quite on, so it's 1.5. I can then put in 4 circles at the center points of the, or rather the endpoints of each slot. I can then hold my control key down and select all of those circles, or all 4 of these circles rather, make them equal to each other, and they have a diameter of 0.5. We'll note that there's a little U slot cutout. It has a radius of 0.25, which is equal to the diameter of 0.5, and it exists on the same line. So if I come in here and utilize my circle tool, now you want to make sure that you get an intersection, so sometimes that might not happen. So sometimes it's more convenient to make sure you get it to be fully constrained, is to click here. That makes sure that I'm coincident with this line, and then select the center point, hold down your control key, in this case select this vertical center line, and make it coincident there as well. So I'll select this circle, hold down my control key, select that circle, and make them equal to each other. And then what I need to do is just take a straight line tool snapping to the quadrants on either side, the left-hand side and the right-hand side of this part. And that gives me now my full shape. If I put this in isometric view, you can see that I have the orientation in the correct manner. This is not quite an isometric view. It's probably a dimetric or trimetric view, but we are getting the orientation of the part where we want it to be. Now, this is the origin, so I'm going to want to extrude downward a distance of 0.5. This is the thickness of that portion. So I'll go Features, Extruded Boss, select my contours, and make my thickness 0.5. And instead of this direction, I'll use the Flip Direction tool to go downward. Okay, so that gives me my base. Now, how do I construct this? This is sometimes referred to as a tombstone shape. So what we're going to do is we notice there's an angle of 45 degrees here. So this is the new thing. I'm selecting reference geometry, and I'm going to select the plane. Now, in general, you would need 3 things to specify a plane. Again, from basic geometry, 3 points in space, you can lay a plane on top of them. So in general, you would need 3 things. Well, in this case, we're just going to select an edge here. That's going to essentially think of it as the hinge that the plane will rotate about for our 45 degrees. And then I can just select this plane, and we'll put in an angle of 45 degrees. So just to give you the example, the first reference for the plane is this edge. The second reference is this face or this face. Either one will work. We'll select this face. And you'll notice that it sort of jumps down. It does a weird thing. Well, that's because it's by default telling me it wants to be perpendicular. Well, I'm going to set in the angle and set the angle to be 45 degrees. And now you say that it's not doing what I want. Well, you have options here of flipping the offset. So that's the distance that we want. So sometimes if the angle is not where you want it to be, you can flip the offset. All right, so we'll say OK. And now what we want to do is select this plane, and this is where our new sketch is going to be. So I've selected the plane, go to the Sketch tool, select Sketch, and sometimes this is the thing that'll happen. It'll be upside down from the view that you're thinking you want. Not a big deal. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll just hold the Alt key down and utilize my left and right arrow key to give me the rotation that I want. Doesn't really matter. Some of you won't be bothered by it at all, but I like to have it in an orientation that looks right to me. All right, so now what do we do? Well, I have my center point, and this shape is defined by this line, these lines. I already have it. So let's see what we're going to do. I'm going to draw a center line, and the center line can go from this point. I'll just drop it there because I can put in a dimension of 1.38. Now, I'm going to make a circle from here over. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select the circle, hold my Control key down, and select that edge and make them tangent to each other. Then I can take a line tool, select its right quadrant, go straight down till I intersect the bottom edge, do the same thing on the right hand side, and come across on the bottom to close my curve. So if I rotate into 3 dimensions, you'll see that I now have my 2 curves. Now, how do I extrude this? Well, there's something that we want to do. If I go Features, Extruded Boss, I can select that circle and these 2 parts here to give me the extrusion that I want. But now it wants to go in that direction. That's fine. I'll flip the direction, but you have to be careful here because if you go to a specific depth, it's going to actually go through the part. So that's obviously not what we want. So this is a perfect example of why you would use the up to surface tool. So instead of doing a single direction, we'll go up to surface and we'll select this surface. We'll say OK. And now you might say, well, why didn't I put this hole in the first time around? Well, I'm going to assume that the hole goes all the way through. So I'm going to put it in as a separate feature. So, and right away, you'll see that the plane is staying visible. That's because when you put a reference plane in, it by default, it acts to be shown. So I can left click on the plane and hide it now, but I don't need to see it anymore. I've used it for what I want. Now I'm going to just select this plane, left click, make a sketch on it. Move it over here so you can see it a little bit better. And I'm going to use my circle tool. Now again, I've stated this before in class, I can't find its center until I hover over the edge of the circle, and then its center becomes pickable. So I'll draw my circle, use my Smart Dimension tool. It has a diameter of 0.6. And in this case, I can now do an extruded cut, and I can go all the way through the part. Okay, so I can put it in isometric view. And over here in the feature manager tree, I can hover over the origin, and we can see that the origin is indeed in the correct location. You will note that this view and this view look slightly different than each other because this is not exactly in a trimetric, an isometric view. You could try modifying the view orientations to see if there's a better one that would make it look like that. There's your dimetric, that doesn't work. And the other option would be a trimetric view. A little bit, but neither of those are exactly the right orientation. So this one is done in a slight variation. So let's look at it in isometric view. I think that's the easiest and best way of looking at it. So let's go ahead and let's give it a material now. I'm going to right click on the material. I'm going to go to edit material now, bring up my whole list of possible materials, and I'll make it some type of plastic. And how about I'll make it, who the heck knows? How about very low density polyethylene? And I'll say apply and then close. So now I have a different material, very low density polyethylene, and I can go to my evaluate tab, mass properties. I get the volume as being 6.93 cubic inches, a surface area of 39.61, and the very low density polyethylene is 0.03 pounds per cubic inch. That would give me a mass of 0.23 pounds. Okay, I hope you found this video informative, and remember, this is the first time we've utilized something referred to as the reference geometry, which is found here under the Features tab.